What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a new edition of the By the Horns podcast presented by Toyota. And Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand. So find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. Cam Smith rocking with my man Drew Stevens of the Bigs. It's been a little minute, Drew, but it's great to be back with the people so they can see us. If you're watching the By the Horns podcast on YouTube on the Chicago Sports Network page, or if you're listening to us wherever you get your pods. It's been a little bit, but a lot going on in the NBA since we last addressed everybody. Of course, we last addressed you before the NBA trade deadline, some moves being made across the league, some just wild, outrageous moves that nobody saw. So that's been dissected, unpacked. We've seen some players in their new situations so far. But you get to a situation, Drew, where All-Star Weekend is here as we record this podcast. It is a Wednesday and a very wintry night in Chicago, man. Snow, slush, everything, all the elements in the city of Chicago. But it is a Wednesday night, February 12th, a couple of days away from All-Star Weekend in the Bay Area. But the Warriors are playing host for the NBA there. But, Drew, we saw the Chicago Bulls team finish off the final game before the All-Star break with another tough loss against the Detroit Pistons, another double-digit loss in back-to-back nights against the Detroit Pistons. And one of that weird NBA scheduling where they play the same team in the same building on back-to-back nights. And they head into the All-Star break with a record of 22-33. So some things to unpack with this Bulls team coming off the trade deadline, players that were added to this team in place of Zach LaVine during that three-team trade with the Sacramento Kings and the San Antonio Spurs. Very guard-heavy group: Trey Jones, Kevin Huerter, Zach Collins is another piece in the front court for this Bulls team. So just kind of assessing what we've seen in a very small sample size from these players, Drew. What's the read on what we have and what Billy Donovan is trying to make sense of in terms of these rotations with these players?
I think Billy Donovan, as well as you and I, and I'm sure a lot of Bulls fans, are trying to make sense of it as we speak. He's having to juggle a lot. He's spoken himself about how unbalanced the roster is with the amount of guards that he has to, try to figure out how to swing into his rotation. It's a team in transition, a franchise seemingly in transition. So it's hard to really get a bead on what this team is going to look like these last 27 games of the season.
Yeah.
Once they get back from All-Star Weekend. Obviously, losing Zach LaVine, you lose your leading scorer. You lose your primary, shot creator, tough shot maker, guy who's been an absolute marksman from the arc. So all of that starts to fall to other players who are here. In my mind, I'm thinking primarily about Coby White and how much more scoring and just creation responsibility falls on his shoulders now.
Right.
We've seen him kind of go very cold now these last couple of games here, 2-3 games now, if I'm not mistaken, coming off of a particularly hot stretch that he had. So, we've seen Coby go through these ups and downs, these shooting slumps, whatever you want to call them. But, now without Zach being there to help bail this team out, it's hard. Now other guys have to try to step up. 𝗬𝗎 was able to fill in a little bit of those gaps tonight with his dribble penetration and just the way he stayed aggressive with the ball in his hands tonight. Vooch, another double-double. I think it was his 35th consecutive double-double of the season. But it's a lot of things to figure out the rest of this stretch. And we've seen some very unfortunate lopsided results the past 4 games or so. I know you were telling me the average points that they lost by these last 4 games, but you should go ahead and spit that out for everybody so they can hear that figure out loud.
Yeah, it's a situation where you know what it's been for this Bulls team defensively. Like, they've had their issues, one, when it comes to defensive transition, when it comes to defending points in the paint, when it comes to giving up second chance points. And so looking at the streak that they're on, and it's not the streak that you should be on, they've lost 4 straight heading into the All-Star break. So you're looking at losses against Minnesota, against Golden State, against Detroit in back-to-back games, as we mentioned tonight, and then the previous night where they lost by 40, but that was an average margin of loss by 24.5 points when you total all of that up. And so 3 of those games were inside of the United Center. And I understand a team that's in transition, obviously certain pieces together are trying to find their way, find the chemistry. We saw a lot of that in the first game for Tre Jones and Kevin Huerter when they played against the Golden State Warriors. But it was similar to what the Warriors had with Jimmy Butler and his return to the United Center. All right. You had a Bulls team that was in control up until the third quarter. And then, Wardell Stephen Curry stepped up and was Chef Curry for sure. And Jimmy Butler had a great game as well. So you want to make sure, especially at home, that you have some type of resistance for people walking into your building. But it's been the opposite for this Bulls team when you look at especially their last 3 straight games and their last 3 home games, as I mentioned, against Golden State last Saturday and the back-to-back games against the Detroit Pistons. Now, we didn't mention Tuesday what that score was against the Detroit Pistons, and it was a 132-92 loss for that Bulls team. So 40p 𝗚cie that they saw at the end of the scoreboard when the clock hit 0. But at times in that ball game, it was worse than what the actual score was. Like, you're looking at situations where I'm thinking Drew is going to start to creep up even more with his team because, 1, they lacked physicality. 2, they were not allowed to run any type of offense. And that's all credit to the Detroit Pistons. These are things that Billy Donovan said post-game. These are things that Josh Giddey said post-game in terms of this Bulls team not being physical enough, not being ready to play. And you have a young Pistons team that, for me, looking at this group, and if Detroit has not caught your eye, then I don't know what you've been watching. Maybe you've been watching college football and watching the NFL. I get it, right? Some people jump into the NBA around this time of the year when football season is officially done, even though we know it's never officially done because no sport is officially done because sports are 24/7, 365. Yeah. But if you see the pieces that were put in place for this Pistons team, from how they drafted to the free agents that they brought in, to the trades that were made, to the hiring of JB Bickerstaff, former Cleveland Cavaliers head coach. And we remember what JB was able to do with that Cavs team, even though the regular season success didn't match the postseason success. But you're looking at a good mixture of things with Detroit. And this season has really come to fruition with everything that they put in place and trying to, 1, find an identity, and then finding that identity and really building on that identity. And it's a Pistons team that is physical. It's a Pistons team that doesn't care who the hell you are. And it's a Pistons team that understands that no matter what arena that they're in, whether it's Little Caesars, whether it's the United Center, Crypto.com, whatever you want to play the Pistons, they're going to have you play their brand of basketball, which is going to be a physical game. They have the young players in Cade Cunningham, who's going to experience his first All-Star weekend and All-Star game this weekend in his NBA career. You have Jalen Duren, you have Isaiah Stewart, Asar Thompson of the Thompson twins. Like, they have so many pieces, and Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Fontecchio off the bench, and Ron Holland, who's a young dude that played G League Ignite last year with Matas Buzelis, and they're really good friends. They just have the right pieces in place that has a team top 6 in the NBA and has a realistic chance of making the playoffs. So it was not a tough stretch by any means for this Bulls team in this 4-game losing streak that they're on, Drew. And that first game that started the losing streak was against Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. And so we know what Ant-Man and how we finished off in that ball game, and just having a situation where he was Ant and one of the more electrifying players in the NBA. But again, when you have a roster that's in flux and it's in transition, you're going to have nights like we saw during the last 4 games against this Bulls team where they just don't know where they're going to get their consistent scoring and a guy that can go on a run for themselves to quell and stop any type of opposition run.
Yeah. It's funny because the Pistons have been little brothered for so long. It's like now they just kicking butt, taking names.
Look, kicking doors down.
Kicking doors down. You mentioned it. They have a bona fide playoff spot. Like, they don't have to worry about the play-in as it stands today. And I believe they have an outside chance of creeping into hosting a playoff series. Now, some things got to work in their favor. They need some teams to drop back, but they are playing pretty good basketball, man. Yeah. And to think where they came from and to kind of juxtapose that with this Bulls team who has some young guys on this roster. We heard AK talk about the amount of players on this team who are under the age of 25, and this trade of Zach LaVine where you bring in Tre Jones and Zach Collins and Kevin Huerter, it throws things off where some of these under 25 players are not getting the playing time that I would like to see them get in order to figure out, man, you know, how much more development do they need? What's going to be their place here with this team or this franchise in the future? Dalen Terry, I don't know how many minutes he's played the last couple of games. I know he's been dealing with an injury not too long ago, but these last 2 games, I'm pretty sure he dressed. He was ready to go. I think he got a little bit of time in the first game against the Pistons. I don't believe, unless it was garbage time, that he got in tonight, as is Wednesday as we record this. Julian Phillips was almost like a, man, I got to find somebody to bring some energy type of replacement into the game that we saw tonight. You know, I want to see him get some more minutes. You know, it's one thing for everybody to clamor about Matas Buzelis getting some time, but there's some other guys on this team that need to see some minutes as well for their own development and just for Billy Donovan, for the front office to be able to evaluate them. So now you kind of put them behind the 8 ball again, if not behind Zach Collins and Tre Jones and Kevin Huerter, although positions are a little different, but I think you get my point, you know?
I'm with you.
Yeah, these next 27 games, I need to see more of the young guys. It's good that we've seen Matas start these last several games and be able to get in there with Kobe and Ayo and Josh and kind of see what that chemistry looks like. But now I need to see some of these other guys get some time too. I know that some Bulls fans may have made their mind up about Dalen Terry, but I want to see more. Right. If nothing else, Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips, you know, they're going to bring some sort of a chaos factor into the game. Now, sometimes I can go left with Dalen Terry. Sometimes he's a little too aggressive, can pick up fouls or maybe tend to play a little too carelessly, but they bring a motor and a certain energy to the game that I think this team could feed off of, and I want to see it.
Yeah, and you need the energy off the bench, and that's a great point of just what their roles are. And I'm sure Billy Donovan and the coaching staff have explained those roles to Julian Phillips and Dalen Terry that, hey, when you guys are getting into the game, we need you, one, to play defense, right? Bring that spark, the energy off the bench, but then also attack when you have your moments offensively, right? And more so for Dalen Terry attacking the rim instead of settling for jump shots. And it's almost the opposite for Julian Phillips, who has proven that he can knock down shots from corner and from 3. I mean, we've seen that time and time again, but it's one of those situations where you have 27 games and you have an evaluation period. Yeah. And really, you have to really put it on yourself if you're in that rotation, if you're Dalen Terry or Julian Phillips, Patrick Williams as well, even though I know he has that 5-year, $90 million deal. But depending on what you show and where this Bulls team is going and what their plans are and what they're trying to build, you got to decide if you want to be back in that starting lineup or you're more comfortable in that reserve role. So it's a lot that has to reveal itself for the rest of this season, for this off season, but it's a great opportunity for these guys to prove their worth, right? And so it just makes it interesting when you have Kevin Huerter, Tre Jones. I'm still throwing Zach Collins in there in terms of that rotation and how that works. So you have to make sure when you're evaluating these guys, you have to ask that honest question. How do they fit for our future? How can we use these guys in our future? And so I'm sure the Bulls are having that conversation as they move it forward. But again, Detroit is a great example of them being able to go through that organizational transition, go through that roster transition. I know Detroit Pistons fans are like, look, Cam, we walked through hell with gasoline draws on, bro. It was nasty. We had some rough years, but now the basketball gods are smiling on that front office and this team because they made sure that they drafted well. They got the right guys in there that fits their culture. And really, they tap back into what the old culture was of the Detroit Pistons, and that's just a physical team. I'm not going to say they're the bad boy Pistons, but they got some dudes that have a little bit of that mentality when you think of Isaiah Stewart.
They play with an edge.
Yeah, a little edge. Like Ron Holland, even though he's a young guy and a rookie, but still he plays a little edge. And if you don't believe me, then go type in Ron Holland fight. And he squared up with a couple of cats so far this season. Jordan Clarkson is one of them with the Utah Jazz, where like, at the free throw line getting ready to square up. I'm like, okay, I get that some people are like, Cam, you don't want to promote violence. But at the same time, and Stacey King and Adam Amin said it on tonight's broadcast, is that the Bulls with this roster, they don't have dogs. And that's just flat out what it is. They don't have dogs. And what I mean by that is guys that have that edge to them, to where if you walk in that building and you have a game like we had the other night against the Detroit Pistons, where the Pistons turned the United Center into their own home, you don't have a guy providing any resistance, whether that's physically or challenging guys one-on-one in terms of their own teammates and holding them accountable, so that there's a better effort out there on the floor. Right. And so I know Bulls fans may not want to hear this, but you got to take some pieces from NBA teams, but also at the same time, remember who you are, what your franchise is, what that logo means, and tap into that. But looking at Detroit, and I'll say this the other night, Drew, the first game of this back-to-back, Tuesday night, I'm in the media room at the United Center. Before the Pistons go out for their final warm-up, I'm sitting down, having my meal, having a couple of conversations with the digital team of the Chicago Sports Network. And I see the Pistons security guard come with one of those big, heavy JBL speakers, the one that like lights up in the speaker area. Big enough, and the guy's like 6'10", so big enough, he puts it on the table, his play, and I hear Tim Hardaway Jr. say, "Detroit's in the house," and they blast, I promise you, they blast Boss Man D-Lo so that you hear it, and the media room is vibrating because the music is so loud. And it's that type of mentality where I said that this Pistons team, doesn't matter where they're playing. It doesn't matter if they're in the home arena at Little Caesars Arena, if they're in the United Center, Crypto.com, TD Bank North, where the Celtics play. They make it their environment. And that's that edge that they bring with them every single time. But when you have that mentality and that togetherness, it translates on the court, because we saw last night and we saw it again tonight against the Bulls, where they're diving on the floor for loose balls. You see the bench up, waving towels, celebrating each player, celebrating guys when they get to the bench, standing up, applauding them, just how they connect with each other, how they're moving the basketball around, making the extra pass. So those are things where it's the culture that they're tapping into that's allowing them to have this type of success. And so when you unpack it and you peel the layers back for this Bulls team and get down to the foundation and core, it's there. They just have to put the right pieces in place roster-wise to make sure they can get themselves back where they need to be. And that's not in basketball hell. That's not in basketball purgatory. It's basketball heaven. And what I mean by that is being one of these top 6 teams and having a legit playoff spot and making a run at an Eastern Conference Finals or NBA championship. And that, to me, is basketball heaven. Tired of being in basketball purgatory and hell. Can't do that no more. Moving forward. And this front office understands that, and they said it in so many words even before the season and this season as well, where they're trying to get out of being in the middle. But you do it by putting the right pieces in place, Drew. You do, and you can show me better, you can tell me. So I need to see what's going to happen in the offseason, what's going to happen leading up to next season's trade deadline. Like, show Bulls fans what it is that you are planning to do, what it is you hope to gain this offseason and next season in terms of your roster composition. I flat out asked AK at his post-trade deadline media availability, why is it that Bulls fans should feel like you're the person who's going to turn this ship around and get it going in the right direction? And he talked about, what he did, him and his front office did before the 21-22 season and the magic they were able to work with the roster that they put together. And that was an exciting time for Bulls fans with Lonzo Ball and DeMar DeRozan and Alex Caruso and Zach LaVine all clicking and playing well. We know what happened to that version of that team, though. So now, 3.5 seasons later, you have to be able to do that again. You have to be able to give fans a reason to hope and believe that something better is coming around the corner. I think Matas Buzelis
is a shining example of something that Bulls fans can cling on to and hope the best for. But in terms of where this team and this franchise is going, there just has to be more shown to everybody where this thing is going, what exactly the plan is. Because we see it with Detroit. They are coming off one of the worst seasons in the history of basketball, playing a lot of the same guys now that they were last year. So it can change. It can change. You can bring in veterans who fit a little bit better, who give something to the culture that you want to foster, and you can turn things around. Like I said, they were little brothered for a long time, and now they are making sure that they let everybody know that they have arrived. And you want to see the Bulls catch back up to the teams that have not lapped them, but are in front of them right now. And that was not the case 3.5 seasons ago. They got some teams that they have to catch now. And it's not going to happen in one off season. It's not going to happen in one season, probably, but it can happen. But things need to be put in place. Plans need to be developed, and things need to evolve for fans to feel like, okay, this thing is really going back in the right direction now.
Yeah, and I'll throw 𝗬𝗍 into that hope for the future with this Bulls team, along with Matas Buzelis. So I think those are the two pieces when you look at what they bring, obviously what they mean to the city of Chicago, but then just their versatility on both ends of the floor. You have one guy that, to me, is the best on-ball defender for the Chicago Bulls team, and 𝗬𝗍, the best down-here driver, even when Zach LaVine was here. To me, is 𝗬𝗍 from the season, what we've seen from him. And then Matas, as a rookie, leading this team in blocks and with the minutes that he's getting compared to other rookies and other players in the NBA, it's impressive what he's averaging block-wise. But getting back to Matas and really highlighting what he's been able to do in a new spotlighted role, being in that starting lineup for this group, averaging 15 points per game this month, in the month of February, heading into All-Star break. A guy that's shooting 50% from three, making about almost 2 threes a game, averaging 1.2 blocks. So his shooting splits have improved, and that was one of the biggest knocks on Matas coming into the NBA. When you look at his shooting numbers from G League Ignite, it was like, okay, well, this guy's in the low 30s, at times high 20s from three, but it's a credit to him because he's a worker. He's going to put that work in. It's a credit to Peter Patton, and it's a credit to just the system that Billy Donovan created for this team that's going to be high octane, get up a lot of three-point attempts, run, and they've been proven to be one of the top or better teams in the NBA when it comes to attempts, makes, and also percentages. So he's a dude that you can definitely rely on and lean on as you move forward, and he has to be that. And he's been a steal with that number 11 overall pick in last year's draft. But when you look at him moving with his competition, when it comes to this rookie class, Jew, I'm looking at a sports book right now that has Matas 30-1 to win Rookie of the Year. Is that worth a little sprinkle? I'm not saying put a lunch type money on it, lunchtime money on it, but maybe a few dollars, something like that. Gas station money. Like you want to pick up a Snickers bar, gas station money.
So I'm not a betting man. Let me just put that out there. But I think it's definitely worth a sprinkle, just because I'm not sure that anybody in this rookie class has really set themselves apart or is that far ahead in the minds of potential voters where, they're a shoe-in to get it. And with his increased minutes, his increased usage, his confidence, him being in the slam dunk competition and potentially winning it and getting even more notoriety, it's worth a sprinkle. It's definitely worth a sprinkle.
Okay, because I already put a little gas station money
You're smart.
on that bet already, on that future. But then also I put some gas station money. I'm not gonna lie, I put some lunchtime money on Matas winning the dunk contest this weekend because he has the third best favorites in the field of 4 plus 700 to win the dunk contest. And so I'm like, you know what? At 6'10", what I've seen from Matas, then also him saying a few days ago that he has basically his plan ready for the dunk contest. He just needs one more dunk. And I think this is more gamesmanship on Matas because I believe he knows what that dunk is, but he's a showman. So he's just leaving people on edge to give that suspense. And so that's why Matas is going to be special in the dunk contest. So you don't have to say, hey, Cam Smith put lunchtime money on Matas winning the dunk contest, so I'm going to do that. Don't do that. All right. Don't do that. Bet how you feel. You're a grown-ass man or a woman. Like, bet how you feel on this situation. But I'm going to make sure that I try to reap the benefits of that bet with Matas winning the dunk contest. But it makes it interesting, again, when you look at this situation for where the Bulls are moving, this new roster that they have. And I love that Matas has been placed into the starting lineup because he's going to be able to grow at an accelerated rate of facing off against some of the best players in the NBA at that forward position. I don't know how you feel on this, Drew, but to me now, feels like the forward position is the toughest position in the NBA to defend and also get your moves off against and try and score against. It used to be the point guard, but it feels like with the players that we see with every single team, you could almost make a case for nearly a forward, maybe two. I'm probably pushing a little bit, but definitely at least one forward on every team in the NBA that can make a case for an all-star spot. I mean, it's that heavy, especially in the Eastern Conference when it comes to that position. You're going to see Matas really grow with the rest of the games that the Bulls have, 27 to be exact. And they're around the middle of the pack when it comes to remaining strength of schedule in the NBA. I believe they have the 16th toughest remaining strength of schedule. So he's going to grow and he's going to get better. And that's something that the Bulls want, obviously. That's something that Matas wants. And that's something that the city of Chicago and Bulls fans want because we understand how special of a talent that he is.
Absolutely. This is the way he's going to grow. He gets to play against ones. Like it's a different ball game now. You're playing against another team's best players. And to your point, I wouldn't even specify it to threes and fours. I would just say wings in general, man. That's like that's the cream of the crop where the NBA is concerned nowadays. And him being in that position now where he is playing against the best of the best players. He said it himself after one of the matchups against Boston, like playing against Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, like that's going to make me better. It's only going to make him better. He gets to learn on the fly, thrown into the fire, sort of, because he had kind of a, for lack of a better phrase, a grace period in part of the first half of the season with Billy Donovan kind of loosening up the reins a little bit, playing him sparingly at first and gradually increasing his minutes as the season has gone on. But it's only going to make him better. Like I said, he is one of the brighter spots for the future of this team, if not the brightest. So you want to see him be put in situations where he can develop, he can learn. It's not going to be, ice cream and rainbows every game. He's not going to shoot 10 of 10 from the field like he did that one game where he had 24 points. Like he's going to have to go through it. But that's part of it. That's part of the journey. And I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm here for it as well, man. Matas definitely has a bright future ahead of himself. And talking about those pieces for the Bulls moving forward, I mean, shout out to Lonzo Ball. Clapped up for Lonzo Ball one time, man. Be able to get that 2-year, $20 million deal to prove to everybody that his career was not done and that he's staying around in the NBA for another couple of years because he got that extension with the Bulls. And so that's great to hear for Alonzo, man, a dude that has been through it all mentally and physically of getting himself back. So he's with his team. And we heard 𝗵𝗺 talk about this during his post-game, or excuse me, not post-game, but his press conference after the trade deadline expired with Lonzo and how he's just a great locker room guy. And it'll be perfect for this team building for the future, in my opinion, to have not only a vet like Lonzo in the locker room, but a veteran point guard like Lonzo in the locker room. And we've always been high on Lonzo on the By the Horns podcast, Drew, of what he is on that floor. And you call him a basketball savant. And that is one of the best descriptions that I can think of when it comes to Lonzo, is that's what he is. He's a savant on that basketball court and at that point guard position. So he's with that team. And it makes it interesting this offseason, again, with the decisions, with Josh Giddey being a restricted free agent. You have Trey Jones on this roster. You have Kobe White on this roster. Ayo Dosunmu on this roster. You have some guys that are point guards or ball handlers. Javon Carter threw his name into that. And speaking with K.C. Johnson, that he has a player option. And Casey was saying, yeah, Javon's probably going to take that player option. And if I was Javon, I would take the player option as well. So, again, they have decisions to make for this all season. And these final 27 games will be that evaluation period. And then we'll see how the cards fall out from there, because it's going to be gradual steps to get this team back where it should be. A team in a franchise, and definitely a franchise that's the home of the GOAT, that has the youngest MVP in NBA history ever, that has 6 NBA championships, that has 13 Hall of Famers, playing a building called the Madhouse on Madison. So it's that, trying to get back to that glory, which, as we've seen, we talked about the Detroit Pistons, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Orlando Magic. There are examples of teams that have been able to turn it around in a shorter period of time than you would have thought as they were going through the fire, through their organization transition. So we'll see with this Bulls team moving forward, Drew.
Absolutely. You can even throw the Cleveland Cavaliers in there.
Yeah, great point. Great point on Cleveland.
They've taken off. They've taken off for sure. So
for sure.
Definitely got questions to answer, man. Just my little piece on Lonzo. Thought that was a really good deal. It's a feel-good story. Good job of negotiating with AK and his management team of getting that team option on the last year, that 2-year deal. I think he will be good for the young guys for sure. Somebody that is going to teach them, who's going to make sure that they get the ball when they're running hard in transition, that they're in the right spots defensively. So there's no better player for them to learn from on this team than Lonzo Ball. So we'll clap it up. We'll clap it up for Lonzo and this front office for making that deal happen.
Yeah, shout out to Lonzo, man. Shout out to the whole Ball family, LaMelo, LiAngelo, who's going to perform All-Star Saturday night.
Jello is everywhere, man.
Yeah, look, when you get a $13 million deal from Def Jam with $8 million of that guaranteed, hey, you better be at All-Star Weekend. You better be there performing, man. You got to do that. So it's gonna be another hopefully great All-Star Weekend, and just the game portion, I'll set that conversation aside for another day. But you're hoping for an exciting All-Star Saturday night. We know the three-point contest is always exciting, but it's a dunk contest with our very own Matas Buzelis, who will be participating. And again, plus 700. I put a little lunchtime money on that for Matas to take home that trophy, bring it back to the Chi, and hopefully he shines brightly for that Chicago Bulls team. Okay, we're going to wrap this thing up on the By the Horns podcast. Bulls are 22-33 as we enter the All-Star break. 27 games left. New roster, new rotation, new names. Billy Donovan trying to make sense of it all and have this team just show what they have in this evaluation period when we resume play next week. And that first game will be against the New York Knicks inside of Madison Square Garden. So for sure, the road does not get easier for this Bulls team. It doesn't get easier if you're in the NBA in general, no matter what team you are, because that's just how it is, man. Very talented league. So you got to step up, hoop, and just try and see where the cards fall as they may, but you got to put out the effort and all of that. All right, we appreciate everybody for tapping in with us on the By the Horns podcast presented by Toyota. Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand, so find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. For my guy, Drew Stevens of the Bigs, I'm Cam Smith. Thank you for tapping in with us. Everybody that subscribed to the pod, that have put comments, that have liked all of our videos and all of our pods on YouTube under the Chicago Sports Network page, that are following us. We appreciate you. We salute you. We'll be back next week. Take care.